Are you interested in learning more about our Generation Re investment syndicate, where our aim is to make investments into regenerative food and agriculture companies more accessible for everyday investors, with the minimum ticket being 1,000. We've invested in companies across the regen ecosystem, like Wild Farmed, Mad Capital, Rumi, No Fence, Juntos, Collie, Antler Bio, New Foundation Farms, and many more. Find out more on gen-re.land, that is gen-re.land, or in the links below. Join us for a very special treat, an afternoon stroll through the gardens of Angus McIntosh, also known as Farmer Angus, where we talk about brands, wine, and get interrupted by dogs, and believe it or not, a grazing tortoise. This is the Investing in Regenerative Agriculture and Food podcast, investing as if the planet mattered, where we talk to the pioneers in the regenerative food and agriculture space to learn more on how to put our money to work to regenerate soil, people, local communities, and ecosystems while making an appropriate and fair return. Why my focus on soil and regeneration? Because so many of the pressing issues we face today have their roots in how we treat our land and our sea, grow our food, what we eat, where and consume. And it's time that we as investors, big and small, and consumers start paying much more attention to the dirt/soil underneath our feet. To make it easy for fans to support our work, we launched our membership community, and so many of you have joined us as a member. Thank you. If our work created value for you, and if you have the means, and only if you have the means, consider joining us. Find out more on gumroad.com/investing-in-regen-ag. That is gumroad.com/investing-in-regen-ag, or find the link below. So welcome. And thank you for having me here and showing a bit of the land. Is going to be, as I like to say, only scratching the surface, very short. But I wanted to hear a bit more. I mean, a few things have been happening. This is now autumn or beginning of spring here in South Africa, but autumn in the northern hemisphere. Yep. So let's say beginning of November or the middle of November, where we're at. And you recently launched your own wine brand. And we've talked about brand before. You said, I'm not so happy with my name everywhere, but it needs to be about me, or I feel like it's needed, even though sort of reluctantly putting your face, and I saw your face in the shop as well on all the products. Yeah. So why wine? Why did you like it?
Wine, so the wines we launched end of July. Mm-hmm. It's the 7th regenerative product from the farm.
So and after, just to keep it, we've had you before.
So we've done broiler chickens, beef, grass-fed beef, cured meat, charcuterie. So we're the only guys in the country who raise our pigs outdoors. We're also the only guys who cure without adding nitrates, and phosphates. The rooibos tea, which is the most amazing plant, by the way.
Why is that?
Because if you try and give it fertilizer, it falls over. It just wants to suffer in these conditions. It's an amazing plant. And you need to think about that. Every time you drink rooibos tea, you're drinking this plant, imbibing this energy of this ultimately independent plant. It's fantastic.
So you cannot grow rooibos with fertilizer?
The guy who's helping us grow it on the farm did his master's in horticulture. His master's thesis was on what is the ideal fertilizer for rooibos, and the answer is rainwater. And then we've got laying hens, carbon credits, which unfortunately is a market that's completely dried up. Mm-hmm. And which is quite frustrating because 50% of the net income from the carbon project goes to our staff. And for them to get a nice bonus, I mean, the unsold credits for the staff is worth 550,000 Rand, which in euros isn't a big amount, but in rands is huge. Yeah. So that would be, for us, the carbon credits have never been a thing we rely on for income, but it's a really nice thing to talk about because we can then say, guys, it's possible to feed the world in a carbon negative way. In fact, my wines are carbon negative wines. They're not carbon neutral wines because I can talk you through that calculation if you want, how we've retired more than 4 times what we think those wines have emitted from the carbon project, which is why we can say it's a carbon negative wine. But our whole thesis is that we can eat our way to a healthier, better world.
And so how come? Let's
but let's go back to the wine. Let's go
Yeah.
back to the wine. So the wine is in the 7th regenerative product. It was launched 4.5 months ago, but officially actually started in 2009.
Of course, because you have to plant.
Well, no, not just planting, it's the conversion. And
The first went into the
so the
barrel.
conversion eventually is organically certified by 2015, but it's only by 2016 that the winemakers at Speed, who are my colleagues in this whole thing, figured out or were satisfied with the quality. Because what we did is, in 2009, I was managing the whole of the Speed farm. And within the farm, there were conventionally managed vineyards. And I said to the guys, listen, we cannot have conventionally managed vineyards in the middle of a regenerative, organic, biodynamically managed farm. Just not going to happen. So let's take vineyards out. And they said, whoa. We think a third of the vineyards, so that's 18 hectares, could make good wines. But we're not sure yet. So we said, fine, give us all those years. So we spent years building the vineyard ecosystem. I can talk you through however, whether it's the biodynamic stuff, whether it's the animals grazing in the cover crops, the cover crops themselves, the chicken feathers that we mulch with, which I think you and I have spoken about. Yeah. So there's a lot of different fertility things that we do. By 2016, the winemakers like, this is what these grapes are delicious. Let's start experimenting with making small batches of artisanal wine. And then they just kept refining the model, and now we've got 3 wines in the Farmer Angus range.
So that's
and so Koen, what
how
it's
long
done.
It takes.
What it's done is that it's given us an opportunity, A, to meet new clients because it's a whole new market,
and a market that's very different, I think, from the meat market.
Totally different from the meat market. Is much more focused on quality, is much more discerning in its taste. Okay.
We love to talk about wine and taste, terroir, and all of that. Yeah.
And in our case, we really can, because there's also a lot of bullshit in wine.
There's so much bullshit
Unbelievable.
in wine.
Unbelievable. So Koen, it's been exciting. I went in September. I traveled to 8 countries in 12 days to introduce my wines. People like it. We're going to taste some later this evening. You and I, hopefully, before you get on the plane. Not too much. Maybe you can have lots because you can sleep really well.
I think I'll be fine sleeping. And so how does that fit
It's a logical conclusion because the vineyards are part of the farm. Mm-hmm. We don't just do one thing on the farm, and the underlying philosophy for everything is the same. So in the vineyards, for example, I don't know how much you care or are interested in or know about how wine making happens, but the way these wines are made is a very minimalist approach. We take the grapes when they're correct ripeness, we harvest them, we put them in a chiller overnight so they get about 5 degrees. We squeeze the juice out of them. Half the juice goes into what we call ceramic eggs, and the other half goes into old French oak barrels. And then we leave them. We don't add yeasts, we don't strip the yeast and then add yeast, enzymes, flavorants, food for the yeast, or everything else that goes into conventional wine. The way to think of conventional wine is it's feedlot beef. Grass-fed, grass-finished wine is what we're doing. Okay, so and then we rack at the end and add 15 parts of sulfur, and that's it. So.
And how different is it to? I mean, apart from the years, animal protein takes years as well in some cases. Like how different of a business is it for you in terms of? So the margin distribution.
The irony is we're going to make more money out of wine than out of food. And that's another thing that's so wrong in the world. Because wine is not really food.
I keep saying because you say how to feed the world, which objectively probably alcohol is it's calories, but it's not the main. No, it shouldn't be the main source.
Absolutely.
Let's say. But there's more money in alcohol, or the money I think in agriculture is in cosmetics and in alcohol, like the brands, the natural cosmetics brands. Amazing if you build it, but it's...
Because again, Koen, we failed, as you and I spoke earlier today, about true cost accounting.
Yeah, but it's funny that we spend more of... We don't have any issues or don't seem to have less issues of buying something of high quality natural ingredients that we put on our skin than what we put in our mouth or we put in our bottle or in our glasses. It's just way easier to spend money on that. And you're trying to counter that with charcuterie and with high quality animal protein, but somehow... It's difficult.
We make soap from our beef fat, great margins on that, but our production is just too small. But because original soaps were from animal fat.
Yeah.
And if you wash yourself with this beef soap, you cannot believe how good your skin feels.
We are really looking forward to seeing many of you at the Soil Health Now conference in Wageningen, the Netherlands, 8th till 10th of April. We're co-hosting this event together with our friends Ish and Tom of OpenGeoHub and AI for Soil Health. Expect the most interesting soil scientists and remote sensing and earth observation people, plus friends of the podcast like the Land Banking Group, Earthworm Foundation, Maarten van Dam, Pim Himmick, and Schevinkhoven, Geert van der Veer, Kate of Nature Metrics, Anouk of the Nest, and many, many more. Find out more on 2025.ai4soilhealth.eu or in the link below.
And so how does the wine part fit into breaking that mold or getting through that also in the food part? Are you planning to do, because it goes really well together, obviously, but how do you
So it's a great question.
it?
It's a great question. So
Because you're not going to convert everything to wine.
No. We've got 21 hectares of vineyards.
That's it.
And if we are so there is a 10 hectare block that my colleagues want to convert into vineyards, and we're going to do a direct swap. They're going to establish 10 hectares of pasture. So every vineyard that wants to be established has to be established on pasture. And also, there's only a certain parts of the farm that actually will have a good soils for vineyards. You can't just do vineyards everywhere. So these areas we've identified have to be traded with pasture. Okay,
Credit default swap.
How does it fit into the bigger picture? The wine will be the growth engine, and what the wine will do will allow investment into the other animal protein parts, which will reduce the cost of production of those.
With scale comes.
So like with cows, I can go and buy a whole lot of cows. Then those cows can have their babies on the farm. And those is a marginal cost. Whereas you have to go and buy in cattle that someone else has raised, that's what's expensive. And with the pigs, we can work on possibly growing some of their food on the farm. And things like that. So that's where I see it. I see the wine business will obviously subsidize itself. And eventually we hope to be able to build a cellar, as I spoke to you about, very similar to what Porto Forte in Italy have done. Which is an incredible. I haven't physically been there myself, but I've just seen the videos of it. It looks insane.
That needs an investment, yeah.
and that's a big investment. Yeah. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
No, I can see, I think what we talked about before, how the wine part could be a good margin business when done well, which can help scale the rest. Just like a good cash crop can feed the rest of the operations, as long as it doesn't become a single focus and then distorts the system. But you explain how you're protecting against that. And we just pay way more attention to alcohol and wine than we do to many other things. Which is for another podcast. And how's been the response? It's
been good. I mean, we're actually doing better overseas than locally, but that's because our local market is my colleagues have stuffed up the distribution channels. But that last week, literally for the first time in four months, finally got the correct channel. So now it's a shakedown. And the thing is that a lot of people are very stuck with their wine producers. So despite the fact that I've got a brand in meat, I'm new to the wine business.
Yeah, and the wine business has been
very regimented, very loyal. But we haven't had anybody with major problems. Wine distribution. It's. I mean, we
how
in Belgium.
Different is it from? I mean, of course, from meat. Because meat is all local.
Well, so local. We can't export.
No.
I'm looking at exporting my meat to Dubai, which we'll see. If it's going to happen, it'll be great because then I get much better pricing than locally. And Dubai is potentially a very big market.
Yeah.
And I went to Dubai in May. The charcuterie is not great. I mean, a lot of charcuterie is terrible.
Yeah, most of it is.
And it burns, because it's filled with these nitrates and phosphates. And we don't add any of that stuff. So that's why people love Ridgebacks. Because they're they are completely protective of their masters. So he's seeing, hey, quiet now. He's seeing that, whereas imagine this is a guard dog. Hey, you just die from laughter. That's the only way he's gonna protect anybody. Yeah, those are the forbs that John Kempf talks about. Koen, it's an interesting dilemma.
Yeah,
You know, you want to be focused on food, but yet you want to make the food more reasonable. So I can tell you, on the horizon, the thing that's made me the most hopeful about the food thing, and I'm pretty sure we've spoken about this before, is Dan Kittredge's handheld bionutrient meter or nutrient density meter. But the latest iteration of it, which I'm told by Dan, because I saw him in August, that's coming out, is the thing that makes me most excited about. And the dogs can't believe their luck. So what I'm most hopeful about in the food space, particularly in the meat space, is Dan's handheld device, which he says within 6 months, maybe even less, is going to be able to show you the omega-6-3 ratio in meat.
In animal protein.
And just imagine what that's going to do to the feedlots. Because their meat, I'm talking beef feedlots, the grass-fed, grass-finished guys who are purists are going to be able to go, there's the omega-6-3 ratio. And if we had a people who were focused on medicine.
How difficult is it to measure it now for you to? Is it something you can easily do? You have to send it to a lab.
No, I've got to send it to a lab. Yeah. That's the beauty of Dan's thing, is bringing the lab by hand. Okay, of course I can send it to a lab, but I want to be able to, so people can walk into a shop, and then again, maybe I'm then being naively optimistic, but I believe there will be a retailer that will go, we can do it. And I can promise you, South Africa has hundreds of farmers who are desperate
for a good market.
For a good market. Who can, and then it requires clever coordination, but it's entirely, because we've got so many different, we're such a diverse country with so many different growing seasons, we can have this time of the year, these guys will provide. That time of the year, those guys will provide. And the whole thing will just be one uplifting experience. It'll be incredible.
If the consumer or customer or the eater, let's say, is ready for that, do you see that in your, because you talk to a lot of people obviously that are specifically buying your stuff, and maybe of some other farmers that are already in that, like, do you feel that it's growing the interest for, like, even simply the term omega-3/6 ratio? Is that
in a heartbeat? People are so focused on that. People understand that most of our diseases today are inflammatory diseases. People understand that. It's not a difficult puzzle to
I know, but it's interesting. Like, has that shifted in the last years? Like, do you see the attention? Do you see
I think COVID's made a lot of people think. And COVID's made a lot of people think about what health is. 2, the fact that a lot of people are either dying or getting very sick because of the COVID injections is making people rethink the whole medical world and questioning the dogma that gets rammed down our throats by medicine. So, and part of that questioning is going, hold on, why are we sick? Okay? And I think that market's growing.
And they cannot find it now. That's what you're saying. Because it's not in a supermarket, because you have to go to a shop here, you have to go specifically online.
It's not widely enough available. This is what I'm trying to say.
Is price point an issue as well?
I don't think price point's an issue. The guys can do grass-fed beef everywhere in the country, year-round.
So what then? Is that the processing?
But the problem is that no one has a market for it. So they raise their beef grass-fed, and then they go to feedlots.
To be finished.
So the omega-6 ratio, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what it's going to do for my eggs. You know, I don't know, because those chickens are grain-fed, but they are monogastric, so they're designed to eat grain, so that.
In our last conversation with Dan, he went on about the.
He says pork and chicken's terrible on the omega-6 ratio.
Yeah, he hasn't cut.
But I don't know.
He hasn't cut eggs yet, but he says the sprouting and fermentation of grains is fundamental to counter that. But I think he stopped eating chicken and pork. Now I'm quoting him. I was with him a few weeks ago, but I don't remember.
Did he come to Europe, or did you see him in America?
He came to Europe. I saw him here twice, and did some stuff in Italy, some stuff in France, Portugal, and he's coming regularly now. Don't want to give the itinerary of Dan away, but you can follow him.
Sure.
And yeah, he gave up, I think, most of pork and chicken. That interview, I know a few people listened to it. We interviewed him. He was like, I really changed my part of my diet. Didn't give up eggs yet, but shifted partly to that. And was talking a lot about the fermentation side of things, because they need grain to a certain extent, and what how do we tackle that without making it an inflammatory food, which would be not really the point.
The other thing that Dan's working on is an advanced probiotic or an advanced, you could call it a bokashi or an EM or whatever it is, that you spray onto silage, which jacks up the protein content of that silage and therefore takes away the need to feed cattle grain. Now that is a revolution.
That's a game changer.
Let me tell you. Okay? That's another revolution that's waiting to happen. It's insane.
And so are you hopeful, like in the next years, let's say, short term, which in farmer terms is always a couple of years and not a couple of months, that these kind of things will unlock the market, I'm doing air quotes, which nobody sees, the demand side of things, which will unlock a lot of farmers to be able to...
I do. I really believe that. I don't want to put any more pressure on Dan than he puts on himself. Okay? But it really is important that he gets that work completed, that he finds a funder who can help him drive the cost down. It's critical. Dan doesn't realize what a gold mine he's sitting on. And it might not make him rich, but it will certainly be a massive thing in the world. And I do believe that it will take some retailers somewhere will grasp onto that thing.
Because this is an opportunity. You can be the first, you can be the every diet-focused, animal protein-focused person in that country is going to find you as a retailer, because it's just so, not tricky, but difficult to find 100%. Stuff online, to get it. To
low inflammatory beef. That's what you're selling.
You can sell it as a medicine. Yeah.
And if you do it properly, you can tie the carbon story to it. Okay?
Which is good for
people who care about carbon.
For the supermarkets.
A lot of people don't do it, but the carbon guys can do it. Imagine you're a retailer, okay? You know your carbon emissions are this. But the farmers you support have pulled so much carbon into their soils.
For the scope 3.
It's a cool story to tell.
Do you see anybody, we talked about supermarkets last time as well, like in South Africa here, that could be a first move, or do you see any interest, any dances?
No, because at this stage they can't measure the quality. Quality is not measurable. Okay, that's why Dan's so important.
It's taste, but no,
taste. But people just hide it with sauces, and the sauce people are that clever that they can add all sorts of things that stimulate this. Add MSG, and there's just umami flavor. There's a lot of things you can do. So I'm not convinced that the retailers are ready yet, but without trying to sound like a stuck record, Dan's thing can literally change the game. I'm not saying a retailer will necessarily take it. There's one or two retailers I think who could potentially...
You need one or two to jump.
Well, actually in this country you just need one.
Yeah, because they're two probably.
Exactly. Well, the third one is going down the drain. Third big one. So there's really two big guys, although they're actually still the three big guys. But the one the one talks as if they're the greenest shop in the world. Okay? So this could be an opportunity for them to actually walk the talk.
Or the other one to actually do something green and then show it. Yeah, I'm still surprised how few. I mean, Waitrose, I think, announced in the UK quite a significant regen program, but how few are going down the food as medicine?
In this country now, I don't think they understand it. I don't think there's pressure on them to do it. You see, the one... Hey, look here. Look who's come visit us.
Wow. Okay, this is another Walking the Land episode, but with a turtle walking.
Hello, friend.
Wow.
Hello, friend. Oh, pulled his head in.
He should with the dogs around.
Of course.
That's fascinating. Going for an evening stroll.
Evening stroll.
Such an ancient creature.
Unbelievable, eh?
He was around at the time of the dinosaurs.
Hello, friend. Just don't worry about us, eh? You just ignore Koen and us. It's a shame people can't see what you're doing, Koen, because then you could tell them this is a tortoise that's coming to disturb our stroll.
So people just imagine half a meter tortoise walking the grass where we were strolling around, eating.
Nice, eating the clover. See, it's grazing the pasture.
Grazing the pasture. With his, wow. That's definitely a first on the podcast. Getting disturbed by dogs, we've had many times. That's not a...
Disturbed by grazing tortoise.
Wasn't something I thought would happen. Yeah, I'm waiting for that as well. Like a retailer that, I mean, we've seen amazing online ones, of course, pushing for, but we see like somebody that really puts food, flavor, and quality first, and hopefully attracts a significant amount of attention.
So, Koen, what's making you hopeful?
I would say the influx of talent. Like the last few years, I've seen many people, like yourself as well, of course, way before, that have experience elsewhere in entrepreneurship, finance, like not in the food and agriculture sector necessarily, or even but let's say not in the regen space, that somehow get bitten by the soil bug for whatever reason. Personal health, family health, climate, carbon, water biodiversity, water cycle, like whatever. They see life and syntropy, as we discussed before. They see something and then they don't let go anymore. It's like very difficult. And of course, the whole generation of farmers, a whole group of farmers that start learning, start applying, but that makes me very hopeful. But even more the people that around it, that are building the brands, that are starting to sell, that are building the measurement tools, that somehow, like the space is getting bigger. Still tiny, like most people, no idea when you say nutrient density or omega-6 or 3 ratio, no idea when you talk about cover crops, living roots, etc. But the amount of people, I think, has grown exponentially in the last few years.
It's awesome, man.
And that's really, and we can help. I mean, that's what we try to do with the podcast, help them speed up. Not that who are the people to talk to in the sector they want to work in? Who are the people building things? Who are the people doing stuff? And how can we point resources or help to find ways to make them go faster? And it could be in the farming side, but it could also be on the technology side, on the machinery side, on the sales side, etc., because many people are starting to try to figure these things out against all odds. And that makes me very hopeful. And then you see what makes me less hopeful is climate weirding going bananas, and see the immense pressure on water biodiversity, etc., that agriculture is on. And that doesn't seem to get less. But this seems like, as a good friend of the show likes to call it, an island of sanity. And from there we can rebuild when shit hits the fan.
Yes.
Excuse my French.
No, it's absolutely right. The island of sanity idea is totally valid.
We need them. We need them to... The recipes, okay, what works in this specific context?
Exactly. So
because nobody knows. You have here a friend that farms 900 kilometers away.
Dude,
you can learn, but it's not.
I can have someone farming 10 kilometers away, and they're doing something completely different.
Which makes it so difficult for all the linear people to understand. Like, why don't you just copy it? It's like,
Well, you can't. You can try. You can try and get similar philosophies going.
Yeah.
Okay. So philosophically, we can possibly talk about things like that. But to actually do what works here, my use of water is different. But that again is a beautiful thing with a possibility of Dan's handheld meter. Everyone can do grass-fed beef. Yeah. You can. Certainly in this country. Everyone can do grass-fed beef. You don't have to be... some guys can do it easier because they can irrigate in summer, or they can grow pastures in winter. Because the rest of the country, is this your first time to South Africa?
Yes.
Okay. So you are in what a lot of people will call white Africa, okay? Where there's a lot of whiteys here. It's also the only part of South Africa, or Africa, right North Africa, there obviously it's on the Mediterranean, has a Mediterranean climate. But south of the Sahara, the only Mediterranean climate is here. So we have winter rains with hot, dry summers. The rest of the country has summer rain. So it's very cold, much cold, or relatively, sometimes there's a bit of snow, but it's cold, dry winters with no rain. But those guys up there who can irrigate, they can grow ryegrass and clovers in winter. And then in their summers, the rain grows the grass. So there are people who can have grass-fed and grass-finished beef all year round. But then what will happen, once you start having those handheld meters, the guys who call it grass-fed but who cheat with grain at the end will get caught out, because Dan Kittredge will show you from his research, the minute you introduce grain into the diet, that ratio goes out. The other thing, of course, that I think it could do is it could make the market for venison more interesting.
What is venison?
Venison
again?
is wild game.
The wild man, yeah.
Because that's just
Definitely.
organic grown out there. Make that market a lot more interesting.
Not that we should all hunt for bushmeat, but there are many places where there's a lot of wildlife that say that should or could be eaten, and that we're not. So this whole conversation ends up being a strong push for Dan to finish his meter.
Yes.
Or for someone else, or some other, but it's especially, and I don't know, have you participated in the meat study with Audacious and also Dan?
No.
The beef study, they are doing and finalizing, I think, as we speak, to show the influx or the influence of different pasture management in different places on the quality of beef.
No.
Researched by Audacious with Eric Smith and the Bionutrient and Food Association. And it's interesting. I don't know if animal protein, I think we had it with Eric Jackson, who heads up the board of the Bionutrient and Food Association. So the entry point for nutrient density and quality is animal protein.
Yes.
That's where the
That's
biggest
a Trojan
shit
horse.
is and where the biggest potential is.
Absolutely.
How do you deal, we covered it partly as well.
The tortoise just disappeared, eh?
But in this landscape, it's if you're a tortoise, I don't think it's so difficult.
Yeah.
We're surrounded, beautiful dam. We're looking at, the water we're looking
Check
at.
at the moon, dude. I think it might be full tonight.
Beautiful full moon, spectacular birds. Like, I have no clue how they're called.
They're called the weaver birds.
But the red one
and the
there
bishop
is...
birds. So what happens is that bird in winter is completely brown. Those are his summer colors. For 2 months, they're that beautiful bright orange. There's also yellow weaver birds and red weaver birds. Yeah. Bishop birds, sorry. They're called bishop birds. Imagine that. You get a summer plumage, and then for the rest of the year, you're just a brown bird.
It's what humans do with sunbathing and... And it's the entry point. Do you get a lot of pushback? You're very visible on social media, etc. from the...
Listen, I was on social media until 6 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I had
and then you got
9,000 followers, and I got hacked. And Meta,
that's not...
whether I'm through Instagram or Facebook, I can't
But if
tell
someone
these
else
people,
posts...
I can't get hold of anybody. Just say, guys, I've been hacked, help me. And they just ignore me. I'm astounded that Zuckerberg can build an empire of that size with no customer service.
Yeah,
So next time people ask me about customer service, I'm going to go, you can become Facebook with the shittest customer service in the world and keep growing. Yes, it's appalling, eh?
Does it hurt your sales?
No, so what's happened is I feel I've lost contact because it's quite weird.
You don't even know.
I wear barefoot. I'm barefoot. I'm like one of the most undigital people I know, and yet I feel I've lost this. There's a part of me that I've lost. It's really weird. It's been a strange 6 weeks, but the fact is, there's a lot of storytelling that I do through it, and a lot of people watch my videos, and there's some very cool things that happen on the farm almost on a daily basis, and I can't share them. I'm getting to the stage. I'm going to try until next week Monday. Then it'll have been 7 weeks, and then I'm going to have to start a new account, which is a nightmare. But
our dependency.
Joel Salatin says to you, 50% of the time is production and 50% of the time is marketing. So I've lost quite a bit of my marketing power now.
But do you get a lot of pushback from the hardcore anti-animal camp?
No, not at all.
Interesting.
Not at all.
Or they maybe are not so strong.
I actually haven't had, I've had one or two people give me, over the years, we've been doing this 16 years now. But I've only been on social media for maybe 10, 15, I don't know, I can't remember when I got it. I was on Twitter originally. And then I started Instagram, and then when my Instagram
for the visual
took over
piece,
for the visual piece. And at that stage with Instagram, you could write much more than Twitter. Twitter, you're limited to 440 characters. So I stopped Twitter. And also Twitter got a bit argy-bargy. And so
became a bit of a...
So although I think Twitter's improved under Musk, but be that as it may, I did Instagram, and that was nice. But even that, I was talking to some social media guys. You know, they say on average 35% of posts people even see. So it's quite a galling thing to think that only 35 out of 100 people, but still 35% or 40% of 9,000 is still a lot of people. And I try so hard to sort of conscientize people about it. I met a guy in Switzerland on my travels with the wine, and he said, he looked at my whole, he's a social media guy, just by chance, because I was the only other English-speaking person on the train. He's American. And so he latched onto me and he looked through my whole thing. He said, listen, you've got to tell the story a little bit more like this. You need to take people more on your journey. So I started doing that over October, and then I've been I've been hacked. Because Koen, the reason we branded Farmer Angus is that it's around a human. And humans, what's essential to us is storytelling. I mean, that's your podcast. So why is your podcast successful? Because you're telling the stories. And so that's also why it's been a good... My wife got me to actually brand it around me. I didn't want to brand it around me, but...
No, I remember discussing it.
She's right, you know, it's got to be around a human. There's a yellow-billed kite.
Wow. A bird for all the non-birdies,
Yeah.
I want to wrap up, and thank you so much for this evening stroll.
It's absolutely wonderful. Let's go this way.
Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. For the show notes and links we discussed in this episode, check out our website, investinginregenerativeagriculture.com/posts. If you like this episode, why not share it with a friend or give us a rating on Apple Podcasts? That really helps. Thanks again, and see you next time.